Good morning.
Good morning.
Whoa, wow. Thank you, Kenneth. My gosh, you're deciding, man. So, yes, this is fantastic. Benjamin Franklin would see people, and when he would encounter them, he would say, "What has happened since last we met?" And I have not seen this group for a year, and a few things have happened. And they have all been decisions I've made, one after the other. And I'd like to tell you that before I tell you about a few changes, that everything that's going on in your life is a decision you've made. Every single thing. And some decisions we've made that really line up, like, wow, that was really lined up with my soul. And some decisions were, what the heck was I thinking? But we know that in this thought experience, in this spiritual teaching, that the way of empowerment really is to understand that this energy of your life that is manifesting on the outside starts on the inside, which saves you a lot of time in blaming other people. But we still have some interesting things that we're cleaning up, and we'll talk about those today. So I appreciate, Diane, your comments. What you all are doing in this correct perception is exactly what the topic is today. This wonderful book is called The Power of Decision, and he talks about the decision to be healthy, to be wealthy, and to be happy. And so today's talk is going to be around the decision to be happy. I was living in Chicago, Illinois the last time I was here, and I came to understand that I was not very happy. And I went around sort of thinking, as I was taught in my younger years, to just start changing the people around me, starting to change my circumstances, and somehow I was going to be happier. But I got really tired, right? I got really tired of doing that which was not true. And so I did just what Diane was talking about. I realized what I really love, which is working with people, which is having smaller groups I work with and larger groups I work with and doing retreats and really connecting with the people of the spiritual community of which I'm a part. I wasn't doing. I had really wanted to be a senior minister, and so I was talking about plumbing. And I was talking about the board member things, and I was talking with my staff, who I always want to be friends with them. Now that we're friends, you should do your job better, and that never really works out, you know. And so I recognized I was so tired and so miserable, and I was offered an associate position in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and so I live now in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and it made no sense from my father's perception, which was, always choose the salary or always choose the stability. But I've been hanging around these communities long enough to know that power and real currency is in the energy of happiness. And so when I knew that I really enjoyed this man that I know that's the senior minister, and that they really needed, I could be the fun one again. I love being the fun one, right? Everybody was mad at me for things in Chicago. I'm like, I'm the fun one. I really am. It's like, you don't have to be mad at me. I don't do that stuff. But, oh, Lord. So anyway, it was really an extraordinary experience, and I moved. And guess what? I'm happy. I am happy. And it was the decision to listen to what I know about myself and what I can sell out so quickly when it comes to the outer, whether it's money or somebody's approval or some kind of title on my card or something like that. And it's just, I've done this long enough to know that it will never, ever allow me to live the life that I was born to live. So I want to ask you a question, because I want to make sure I'm not the only one up here doing this. But making a decision to be happy is just right here, right now. You all made a decision to get up, get dressed, come here. And I'm sure you didn't go, I'm going to go to Unity and I'm going to see all those people I don't like. And I'm going to be just grumbling about all the stuff that doesn't work in my life. And there's probably not going to be a seat for me. And I just want to go to this place that's so negative and horrible. I don't think so. So I'm going to ask you, do you want to be happy? And if the answer is yes, let's say that together. So do you want to be happy?
Yes.
Oh, and let's do it again. Do you want to be happy?
Yes.
All right. I'm feeling it, right? So it's a decision, and it's right here and right now. Now, I don't know about you all, but I learned such really erroneous information as a young person. I learned a lot about happiness being something I would achieve, something I would acquire, something that I would, a person that would come into my life, and that was what was going to make me happy. And I've gathered some victims along the way, people that were supposed to make me happy. I've bought things that I thought were going to make me happy, and I've recognized you can't get a hug from a car or a dollar or any of these things that are not these wonderful, lasting things that are from spirit. So we'll talk today about how the true decision to be happy. Raymond Charles Barker wrote this book, and he was a friend of Charles Fillmore. And it is a very straightforward, these guys talk just the most plain, straightforward, between the eyes kind of conversation. You read it and it's like, how is it that I missed this? How is it? But what I realize is my teaching, and God bless my parents who were taught by their parents, and the community in which I grew up, and the culture, and we still clearly have a culture that if I get this thing, my life's going to work. And so we come in here to sort of, it feels so counterintuitive, a lot of what we talk about in here, and it feels so simple. It's like, could this really work? And it does. It's like David talking about really just being in joy. It was funny. I went to the show Friday night, and it was fabulous. It was amazing. But this lady next to me, so Sean's here, and this woman's next to me, and we came back from the intermission, and this woman was like, the music is just fantastic. This is great. A friend of ours told us to come, and she hates everything. So we knew that if she said it was good, for sure it was going to be good. And I'm listening to her, and she goes, this is so fun. They're all so great in the music. And I can't wait for her to quit talking, because I'm going to tell her who I know. Yeah, and because it has all this to do about me, because and I'm just waiting for her to quit going on and on and on. And I said, well, you think you're sitting next to some regular person, but this gentleman's husband wrote the music, and she's like, really? And I went, yeah. Right? And I have to laugh. This has not one thing to do with me. I mean, Sean was actually kind of calm about it. I'm just, you're sitting next to me, but I have to laugh at the idea of, I'm always wanting, I got to be important. I mean, it was hilarious. But then I went home and I said, David, do you know how many lives you're touching by doing what you love? Yeah? And it's interesting because I understand the counting the numbers. But that's not what your job is. Your job is to be joyful for this amazing gift you have. And this is what we all are about, right? But we can all get into this. They send me numbers after every Sunday service. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad there was one person there, and maybe they brought their checkbook. That was good, But it's really about, that's always my joke. If you're one person, hopefully they're contributing. This is good. But the idea that we get so focused on rather than what is our gift and what flows freely from us, sort of we start to make it valuable because of the number of people or the number that show up or whatever somebody's going to write in a magazine or something, and it has nothing to do with that. And so that is what our main idea of being happy is that we recognize happiness is happening right here and right now. So we're going to do a little exercise. I want you just to close your eyes for a moment. And I'd like you just to feel how fortunate you feel to be part of this community. People that love you unconditionally, people that love you even when you're acting silly or even when you're not feeling good about yourself, they love you anyway. Feel these clothes on your body that somebody made. That they're made of some material that might be from, an animal or some creative process of this, of your fabric. And feel the chair on which you're sitting. It's waiting here for you, and someone paid for that chair. Somebody made that chair. And just to feel that sense of happiness that comes from what already is. And let's breathe into that and just open your eyes. Yeah, just this ability to notice what already is going on. I mean, how many times do we come into a place and sit down and we don't think about the chair, we don't think about who cleaned the bathroom, we don't think, we're just like, come on, life, I'm waiting for life to happen. And it's like so many things are already here. So many things have already been blessing you. And it is so valuable to notice these things because your life completely changes as you start to decide to be happy. I'm going to ask you to repeat after me. Something very simple here in this book. And so if you'll repeat after me, I've decided to be happy.
I've decided to be happy.
I have a right to be happy.
I have a right to be happy.
If other people can be happy, then I can be happy. I have the same mind and emotions that they do. I now demand that my subconscious use all of its intelligence to make me happy. All right, and so we're going to repeat that after I give you a few pointers about this decision to be happy and see if it sounds even more powerful for you. All right, Raymond Charles Barker says that indecision is the individual's decision to fail. That indecision is the individual's decision to fail. And I'll say that indecision is sometimes you're not ready to make a decision, but indecision in the sense of not noticing that your decision power is what's creating your life. So indecision, sort of being unaware of this power within you is what will always have you fail because you're not aligning with that, with which you are. All right, so 4 things about happiness. Happiness is not the big stuff. That we must be accountable for our own joy. Success does not equal happiness. And we need to not be afraid of being happy. Okay, it's not the big stuff. You know, I play tennis, and we play, when I first get out, I play on the short court, because then when you go to the baseline, when you play for the full court, you've become proficient on the small court, and it's easier, right? So the things that we're noticing are the little things. You know, the chair, the clothes, I'm breathing, I'm sitting next to somebody that I kind of like. Just met them, kind of like them, right? Or whatever it is that you're recognizing this experience of the little things that are already there. Now, we get still confused about material things for sure. There was a woman that was married to a male minister, and she came home and she'd been shopping, and the minister said to her, oh, it's a pretty dress. How much did it cost? And she said, well, it was $750. And the minister said, what? $750? Dear, you're supposed to say, devil, get behind me when things like that appear in your life. And she says, I did, but the devil said it looked great from the back, too. I have a lot of dresses like that one. Yeah. What are you going to do? Yeah. And so a big part of this experience is laughing at what we do, because you may want to test this out. You know, buy something you think this is going to make me happy, and watch how things wear out. You know, the new car doesn't smell great after a while, and you know, the dress is tired, or that doesn't happen with your spouse, okay? That's supposed to continue to grow and get deeper and deeper. But this ability to see that so many of the things that we think will make us happy are what rusts and wears out. And for Matthew, do not store up your treasures on earth, where moths and venom destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So this opportunity to recognize that love and compassion and trust and this ability to connect with what is really true in life is what lasts. And that is a big part of the experience of making the decision to be happy. He says the material world will make you comfortable, but it will not make you happy. Yes. So I'm sorry if you're in marketing. That's the challenge. But, all right. So, their spirituality is so powerful. It's also the ability to be in the moment. I've done a lot of work in Buddhism also, and spent a lot of time on silent retreats. And it's always a little scary to go because, they tell you, everybody always laugh. Can you read? I'm like, no. Can you journal? No. Can you have your phone? I'm like, no. It's a silent retreat because guess what? Everything you think you need, you already have inside of you. So I've gone on these silent retreats, and I'm always really afraid to go because I think there's something about all of us that what's in me is not all that interesting, right? It has some kind of limit to it or something, and I always am amazed at how this when I can focus on the inner and let the outer go, the just amazing energy of being able to be still and know and stop all that chatter. And there were two monks walking along, and an older monk and a younger monk, and people came up to him and said, "Where are you going?" They were going to go eat lunch, and the younger monk says, "We're going to go eat lunch," and the older monk says, "We're walking." Yeah. So this ability to really be present is where happiness comes from. It's not happiness isn't, at the, retreat. Happiness isn't anything out of this moment. And the ability to be here right now is such a huge component of being happy. When you look at happiness, they've done lots of studies on happiness. There's actually a great film called Happy the Movie. I came to Kansas City when I lived there, and I met one of the producers. And it's a wonderful story of looking at people that have some very little. Fellow in India that is a rickshaw driver and lives in a tent. And he's just like, I love my work, and I get to come home at lunch and see my kids. And then I go back, and we live in this place. It doesn't rain on us. It's this sort of tent. And the radiance coming from his face. And in this film, they show a statistic that says, a lot of us, have you ever thought your circumstances determine your happiness? All right, so they say 50% of your happiness can be genetic. There's things that all of us were given. Some of you want to give back from your family, but some of the genetic experiences are happy, about 50%. 10% are your circumstances, and 40% are your intentional activities. Coming to communities like this, learning affirmations that work for you, meditation, talking, and proactive gratitude. Like, this thing's happening. I'm getting this part, and I'm going to have this experience, and we're going to have a great wedding for my daughter, and we're going to have this ability to hold the high watch for the things in your life. That's 40% of your happiness. So, how we get up sometimes and go, I'm just going to let this day unfold. Okay. But the ability to really hold what your intention is what we're talking about in a decision to be happy. The next one is to be accountable for your own joy. See, I thought I was accountable for your joy. I was really sure that if you weren't feeling good, that was going to be my job. I was going to fix you right up. And I've failed every time. They always say don't fight with reality because it'll win every time. But I've had, we were taught to love your neighbor as yourself. But most of us have started to love our neighbors instead of ourselves. Now, by the grace of the universe and loving judges and a few police officers and a great probation officer, I've been sober for 35 years. And you don't need to, it's just a miracle, really. But then I have now become an expert on everybody else's problem with alcoholism, right? And which is, I can understand why these people keep drinking, It's like, I don't need you in my life. But I have a good friend that she a long time friend that I always kind of dealt with probably drinking too much, but sort of was one of those people they call a functional alcoholic. I don't ever put those two words together, but she did. And so, but then she had a death in her family, and her drinking just went out of control. And we'd already had a trip planned, a few women on a cruise, and so I decided to go, and her drinking was just out of control. It was just crazy and falling down. And I forgot how a lot of people vacation and drink. Maybe you've heard about this group of people, but people are laughing and, I'm just like, this isn't funny, and she was one of those pleasant drunks. I was not one of those pleasant drunks, but so she's kind of funny, but it was just so sad, and especially for me. And I was, listen to me already, especially for me, this was sad for me. So the musicians, we all became friends with the musicians, and we went to their room at one point and they were playing music. This was later at night, and she was sitting on one of the beds, and then she fell off the bed. She was, certainly not in any kind of balance. And so she fell off the bed, and someone else took her back to her cabin. And this musician was looking at me, and I told him that I didn't drink, and I told him I was a minister. And so we were talking, and I was just about to go into this tirade of, can you believe people I just don't believe. And before I could say anything, thank you. See, I had to hold back with my lady at the theater too. So before I could say anything, the musician looked at me and said, wow, she could really use some, he goes, you're the minister. So I'm sure, he said, but she could really use some compassion right now. And I thought, compassion? That's where I was going. Compassion. And I just sat there. Yeah, it was so, here he is, this kind of long-haired, never would have thought, and spirit is coming out of this man, and I'm just sitting there going, I'm the minister, right? And it was so holy, right? Because I made a decision to be sober and hope, and that means be happy, and I just realized how far off I'd gone into this place of judgment and, perhaps if I could, be helpful to people rather than, make them wrong. And it was a fascinating moment. I went back to my room and I just sort of sat with it and I realized, of course, I have compassion for people with alcoholism, my gosh, and all addiction. And after that conversation, the rest of my trip was completely different because I realized my happiness did not depend on her experience, and I also would think and send her lots of blessings. And I wasn't going to happy hour anyway, but I see happiness, happy hour. It's very confusing. But what I did was I quit that energy of like that toward her. And I just really had a completely different trip. And today, she's gone through a couple of treatment centers, and today she's sober. And I will tell you, no help from me. But I did tell her that if you ever want to talk about, sobriety or being, one day at a time, and I certainly can, share my experience and strength and hope, but it's not the idea of you change and I'm happy, because that is never honoring that the God self, the spirit in another person, very much what he was talking about with your experience. How do we just let people find their own way and realize that really is what happiness is about? These two newlyweds over here, I guess it's Lisa and Alan, met, and I always laugh when, if you've been hurt in relationship and then you're kind of want to be somebody else, and they talked about meeting, and I always laugh when you think of meeting somebody and going, oh, my life was awful, my last breakup was horrible, and and I was thinking, they didn't say that to each other, they were talking about their spiritual path, and then they get married a year ago, but it's interesting to see that what you're putting out in the world is what you're going to experience. And it's not ever beating yourself up, but it's saying, who would I like to meet? If I want to meet a pleasant, happy person, maybe I could just, drum that up in myself. Or you're going to have a musician right in your face going, maybe compassion. Maybe compassion is something. So, okay, buddy, I don't know. If I played the guitar, I'd be better. I'm not sure. But, all right. So success does not equal happiness. Anybody ever heard that? Yes, I have an undergraduate degree and, something my father told me to study to make some money and, okay. But so the point is that we can get really hooked up on this idea of being successful and that's going to make me happy. But I would imagine all of us have achieved something that we felt good about, and then you have the next day and the next day and the next day, and you realize, oh, I brought myself to that experience, but it doesn't define me. In this movie also, there's actually a word, karoshi, in Japanese that is about young people dying from overworking. That after World War II, the Japanese decided that they really needed to rebuild their culture, their country, and people went to work, and they said it wasn't that they would support you if you would support the country with loyalty. So young people have had this horrific work ethic to be successful and are dying in their 20s and 30s. So this ability to find balance and find spaciousness and do what's fun. I guess he's saying y'all got, we are in our play clothes today, to find those places where you have joy and where you have ease and where you can hang out with kids and dogs, and all these things are so important when it comes to not making success your goal. Success is getting what you want, and happiness is wanting what you get. That's Dale Carnegie. And finally, to not be afraid to be happy. Marianne Williamson says, we're not afraid of our darkness, we're afraid of what? Our light, yeah? Is that crazy? Yeah? So yes, it is, because your light is what wakes you up in the morning. Your light is what allows you to say, I love this. This is my thing. When I'm doing this, it's timeless. There's some healing that you're doing later after the service. And all the things that we forget that we love, that have been learned out of us. And that's why the simplest things, the things that bring you joy, when people come to me and say, I don't know what I love, I'm like, what do you like to eat? What's a color you like? I mean, you just haven't exercised it as much as you need to, because you've gotten busy in things you don't love. And so that experience of doing what you love will always conquer what you don't love. And in fact, any women here that are not coming to the retreat, or I'm going to do a women's retreat in November in Florida. And that's what we're talking about, is how to rest and rejuvenate and find that joy again. This is we're going to do this again, this, what they call spiritual treatment in Science of Mind, and what they call affirmation here. We're going to do this affirmation one more time and see if it feels any different to you. Okay. I've decided to be happy. I have a right to be happy. If other people can be happy, I can be happy. I have the same mind and emotions that they do. I now demand that my subconscious use all of its intelligence to make me happy. It is said that this affirmation work is shifting your attention from a negative to positive idea and holding it there long enough for it to register in the subconscious mind, right? So the ability to this is what you're doing here when you keep running into all these people that help you remember who you are. It says, decision is the most important function of the individual mind. No creative process can begin until a decision is made. He said, I couldn't write this chapter until I arrived at the decision to do it. I'm writing this on a lazy summer day when the outdoors invites me to many pleasant things, but I've decided that I'm going to write this chapter, and it will be written now. So I close. So it's interesting to hold on to something when I'm going to close with affirming what you're already doing, which is being right here, right now, to know that your happiness is right here and now. It is not about anybody else. It's about you. It's the ability to not see it as success, and certainly the ability to not be afraid to be happy. He says, read more books like this. If there is a metaphysical church in your area, attend it and support it with your money. Give a little more than you normally would in order to open up your channels of prosperity. Gosh, do we have some good stories to tell ourselves about being in the flow. The channel of receptivity. Do not eat alone. I always like, well, I got a Pomeranian. But anyway, don't eat alone. Don't eat alone too much. Do not be alone too much. Keep in circulation with the human race. People are wonderful. God works wonders by means of people. Reactivate old hobbies and find new ones. Keep yourself well groomed. Okay. And wear your best clothes on every possible occasion. Find things to laugh about. You cannot do all these things at once. Pick the ones that you can do and get started. The most important thing to do daily is to remember that God wants you to be happy, because that is how God is in you. And state this aloud. Happiness is now yours. All right, and so it is.